Welcome. Take a breath. This is living with intention. Intentional living means doing what matters most on purpose. Today's conversation is an invitation to slow down, reflect, and choose intentionally. Here are our hosts, Vernon and Gieselle.
Welcome. My name is Vernon Roberts, and my co-host is...
I'm Gieselle Poveromo.
Welcome to Living with Intention. Gieselle, tell them about how this podcast came about.
Oh, taking a breath. We are here. We've arrived. This podcast came about, it's 20 years of conversations Vernon and I have had. We meet monthly at a coffee shop. We live in Charlotte, and we would meet and we would have wonderful conversations. And I don't typically speak for Vernon. I will now. I know both of us got a lot of value out of those conversations. And I would drive away in my car and I'd think to myself, that's life. Those conversations help me to live intentionally. So here we are. We're inviting you into these conversations and our podcast, Living with Intention.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that. And as you can see, our topic today is going to be around autopilot and then how we reset. Look on the right side of our screen and you'll see the rundown. And we're going to use that every podcast. So you'll be able to see the topics we're going to start with. And if you look at the very bottom, you'll see to-go order. And because we're in a coffee shop, that'll be your takeaway order of something concrete that you can take into your week. Right, Gieselle?
Yes. Yeah, I used to get in the car and I'd have my styrofoam, I don't know if there's styrofoam, whatever, plastic cup. And I would be saying to myself, okay, what did we talk about? What did Vernon challenge me to do? So we're providing you that with your to-go cup, the one action to take to improve your life and live with more intention.
Yeah, so let's get started. Let's start with autopilot. So why did we choose autopilot? Well, here's why. Because people, Gieselle and I believe, we've been talking about this a lot. People aren't living with intention, not because they're lazy, but because we get on autopilot sometimes. We don't choose things. We react instead of respond to what we need to be doing. How else would you say that, Gieselle, around autopilot?
We react. And, I know for myself, life is busy. And I like food, so I'm going to give you a lot of food and running metaphor. Plates are full. And I catch myself going from task to task. And for me, autopilot is this thinking of, let me just get to the next. Let me just get through. Now, life happens. I know that. Life is lifing. And I think some level of that we should expect. I personally don't want my life to be a series of, let me just get to next. Because then in the moment, that's just a mediocre life. I don't want life to be mediocre. I want it to be intentional. So for me, to answer your question, autopilot are those moments, a lot of those moments that are, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get through it. I'm going to get to next. I am all for some of my life having that. I don't want my entire life to be created by those thoughts and those notions. What would you add, Vernon?
Yeah, I would say that's it. I think that's a great point, and I think we need to get off of autopilot. That's the problem. So now let's talk about scarcity. So what is scarcity? And Gieselle, we've talked about this, and what I see scarcity is like we're all rushing to get our own instead of thinking, wow, why do we have to rush? There's enough for everyone. So when I think of scarcity, I think of there's one piece of pie and I've got to nudge people out and strive to get my piece of the pie and protect it. That is acting out of fear. When we have, well, why don't you react to that before I talk about abundance? Because scarcity is stuff that has us in, like you said earlier in autopilot, just getting to the next thing.
Yeah. My first reaction is you make me hungry. I've heard you tell
Well,
that
pie.
metaphor.
Pie.
Yeah, pie, and then my mind goes to I love pie, but I like cake more. But it's such a good example and metaphor for, I think we all become, I gotta grab this. I need this. If I don't have this, I'm not gonna be good enough. And I don't wanna live that way. I wanna live at a different level of life. I want you to win. I want me to win. I want all of our podcast listener inners, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but whatever, to win. And I wanna live from a place of abundance. And I want to live at a different level of life. And for me, that's with intention. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I mean, that's why we started the whole podcast. We want to move. We want to help people to think about what's going on in the brain and be at a point of, okay, here's the thought. Is this the most empowering thought I can have in this moment? And let me choose one that allows me to live with intention. So there's enough pie to go around for all of us, is what I would say.
Yeah, and now that we've shifted to abundance, and I have some notes here I want to check that abundance. I've written down here. Abundance isn't about having more. It's not about getting more. It's about believing that you can choose. You can actually choose and not have to do everything. So abundance, it might sound something like this. I don't have time for everything, but I have time for this. Ooh. I think that goes back to what you said earlier, Gieselle.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't have time. I'm realistic. Life is lifing. I don't have time for everything. I'm going to make a choice. And what's most important in this moment is whatever the thing is. That is intention. And I think it's really important for me. Another word I look for that tells me I'm deviating from living with intention is I should. Mm-hmm. I am lucky. I have a vibrant community, lots of friends, and I check myself with various social things. If I start thinking I really should do this, being a good friend, sometimes we should do things in support. But again, I literally watch how many of those shoulds am I doing? And, am I doing it from a place of honest, authentic, wanting to participate, or are the shoulds taking over?
What you choose has to be in line with the goals that you've set for yourself. Yes. So all those other shoulds might fall away, and we shouldn't, what does it say? We shouldn't should all over ourselves. Yes, we should make sure that we are choosing with intention the activity that will take us toward where we need to be.
That's right.
When we think about this next thought around, well then, if I'm going to be intentional, then how do I reset? What are some of the things I need to do to reset? And I love this GPS analogy because it goes back to, I didn't fail. I just have another opportunity to get it right. Think about a GPS. You put in your goal of where you're going, but what does a GPS need in order to figure out where you're going? It needs to figure out where you are. And sometimes we're not clear on where we are. So we need to figure out that for ourselves. Where are we today? And be really clear about that. And then where do we need to go? Now, what happens if we don't get it right? Well, we're just in another place and we reset the GPS because we got lost. And it'll give us another route to get there. But so it's not failing. It's just another opportunity to take a different route to get to your goal. And like I like to say, we have 365 days a year to reset the route.
I'm really quiet here. I really want to take what you just said in, and I want everybody. We have 300, I'm not going to say it exactly like you said it, but the gist was we have 365 days. It's okay to reset. Friends, I hear Vernon. Life is messy. Life is imperfect. It's okay to reset. That's what the GPS is for. Yeah, I'm off course. Okay, let me bring it back. I've heard you say, and I think you said it at the coffee shop, and you've said it as we prepared for the podcast about starting over.
Yeah.
And every single time you say it, I feel internally, I take a breath.
Yeah.
Every single time you say it, because for me, it's okay. It's okay to dust. If you fail, you made a mistake, you fell short, dust yourself off. You've learned a ton and start again. So a big piece of this is self-respect. I'll call it self-love. I think that might be hard for folks to take in.
Okay.
So let's start with self-respect enough to allow ourselves to get messy and make mistakes and use the GPS to start again. I choose myself here. That's what I want to do.
And when we start again and we talk about alignment, what does alignment really look like? Alignment is starting again, and maybe the destination has changed a little bit too. So you reprogram the GPS and make sure that first street I take is in line with the direction where I'm going. So the first tangible action that I'm going to take is one that will be in line to help me meet my goal. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And you and I have spoken about this notion of resolutions. New Year's resolutions, they're not bad. We're trying to build intentionality. The issue is, and I know there's research that, by January 11th, most of us have
quit that resolution.
Yeah, quit. And what Vernon and I are advocating for is just take a breath and look at your life and readjust and start again. And the story I give again and again for myself to remind myself, Vernon knows I used to run, and I've ran 2 marathons, and I'm really so proud of those marathons. And right around COVID, a little bit after COVID, I stopped running. For many years, I would say 3 years, I ran very little. And then as luck and the universe would have it, I have one of my young adults, children, started running. And now he's training for a marathon. And as he's been training, he said, "Mom, do this race with me." And I thought, the last thing I want to do is do this race. But the GPS said one of my values are my family and my sons and being with them. So I said, this aligns with one of my values. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do this. And I trained for a 4-mile race. And intentionality is, I am a different runner. I am 8 years older. Mm-hmm. The body is different. I see times on the clock and I go, ooh. And
you're giving yourself grace. You're giving yourself grace. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, giving yourself
a lot of grace.
Depending on remember the GPS setting, depending on where you are today.
Yeah.
It's not where you were 8 years ago. And you're starting from a different place when you program that GPS.
That's exactly right.
And so when we think about this, and I love your story, and I'm going to go to our last thing, which is the to-go order. And we're thinking about, so what is one thing that you can tangibly do after you hear us talk today that will help you reset and align to your goals so you can be intentional? And Gieselle, it's not a one time set and then you leave it alone. It can happen all the time. Let me give you an example. I do a lot of volunteering in ministries. And in this one ministry, the meetings tended to fall on days I was traveling. And then, so you have to set expectations. So I sent an email and said, my heart is with this ministry. My work travel is such that I'm going to be missing a number of meetings. So I think I might need to roll off so I can give my best to other things. What they wrote back to me was, hey, we'd like you to stay on, and then maybe you can dial in to the meeting and we'll fix that. So in other words, set expectations because you never know what you can do until you ask. But I was prepared to roll off because that wasn't fitting inside of my real life right now. Like you said, life is lifing. And the reason that all those New Year's resolutions fail is because they weren't designed to fit inside of a real life. How can you design it to fit inside of your life? And that's what I was doing. So constantly looking at what I'm committing myself to and maybe paring it down. And not just walking off, but setting it up and putting it out into the world and letting them know. And because I'm really committed to these things, but maybe it doesn't fit in my style for right now. So that's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to think about what is one tangible thing as your to-go order that you can do that will help your alignment live inside of your real life. Gieselle, anything else?
Yeah, I could speak for hours on what you said because it was such a good example and we don't have hours. I think that's a really good example of you were clear and, you were ready to roll off. But there was a space, there was a negotiation. You got your needs met and they're getting their needs met. I think that was a win. And I love that. It was really a win. And it was courageous to be able to say no, which we're going to talk about on one of our future episodes. Every to-go cup we give you, we're going to take our to-go cups too and do our own work. So I'm committing to you, Vernon, and to all of our listeners and new friends. Mine is to be present. The entire, I think it's 16 minutes we've been on the call. I keep bringing myself back. Don't worry about the tech. Don't worry about the points. Listen to Vernon. Be in community with Vernon and all of these callers, and the important content will come.
I love that. And I'll tell you one really quick thing. I mentioned this to you, I think, before. When I was traveling with a colleague a couple weeks ago, she said to me, Vernon, sometimes I think you don't like me because you never look me in the eye when we're talking. And I was like, wow, that is crazy. And I didn't realize. And so I took the feedback in and I realized that when I'm listening to someone, I turn and go and stare off. And they may think that I'm not focused on them. So the next time I was with a colleague, I turned and I looked right in her eyes, and it felt different for me, but I felt like that was intentional, in something intentional that I was choosing to do to make a relationship better. So those are the types of things we're talking about. Little things, looking somebody in the eye, saying no.
What's your to-go? Is that your to-go?
My to-go is that one, is to continue to make sure I'm looking people in the eye when I'm talking to them, even though I'm listening, but I need to let them know that I'm connected.
That's a good one. So you've got the looking people and being connected. Mine is to be present. You all, what's yours? Listeners, new friends, what's your to-go?
Gieselle and I talked about setting expectations. So wonderfully enough, let me look at our rundown for the next show that's going to be up on the right of your screen. Next time, we're going to be talking about choosing yourself, okay, without guilt. So our rundown, listen to our rundown, it's going to be expectations, guilt, boundaries, permission, and freedom. So that is our rundown for next time. So thank you for joining Gieselle and I.
Thank you.
Living with Intention. 12 conversations.
One intentional, beautiful life.
Get that to-go order. Take care. Thanks.